Fallout, a highly anticipated series based on the iconic video game franchise about living a completely normal life in California. By the way, that's true actually, like the game mostly took place in California. Based on the iconic video game franchise of the same name, it's a series unlike no other can achieve, making a sale of a Bethesda game go up. Goddamn, I need to play Fallout, bro. Alright, so the first act of this video is going to be a brief non-spoiler review of the overall show, and the rest is full spoiler covering the ups and downs, and without wasting any time,
let us commence forth.
Fallout, a show that I did not expect to be so good. As you may know from my previous Fallout video where I talked about episode 1, I thought based on the trailers, it was gonna be another bad video game adaptation that relies heavily on so many different lores with pretty much nothing to do in the main story in such a tight space resulted in a convoluted story. But after watching the entire season 1, I was really proven wrong. The first season of Fallout tells a wider story about society, human survival, moral compass, and beyond satire in a world where everything went to hell due to nuclear bombs. The gist of it is that with the world has been under heavy nuclear radiation, most of humanity has to rest underground. That was until 200 years later, one man, I mean woman, decided to step out onto the surface and discover that the world she knows isn't what she used to think. And along the journey, she found different companions whom are absolute insane maniacs trying to survive the remaining world in what today is known as the Wasteland. Within the span of all 8 episodes, I was met with such different and intriguing stories that even though it was short, it tells enough crucial information that the audience needed to move the story forward. Every plot introduction felt so nonsensical, yet it made sense in the end because of a well-structured pacing in the story. Every main character, we spent a really long time with them so that you actually feel immersed. And the nail in the coffin is definitely the very balanced theme and world of fun post-apocalyptic adventure with very dark matter happening in the background. Now, let's rip and tear. One of the most interesting part that really caught my attention to this series was the serious tone from the opening. We see this character named Cooper Howard and him and a bunch of attendees having fun and all, but with the ambience, it's just straight up eerie and serious shit that this world will change forever.
Coming up from my favorite cowgirl.
Is it your thumb or mine?
And this part specifically is just pure adrenaline rush that gives this vibe of hurry, you need to do something quickly, which is weird to say because most of the scene played out in slow motion. After the opening, we fast forward to 200 years later, and this is where the pacing really took control and it wants to give the open world material to the audience very slowly. The prologue starts with a woman named Lucy, an optimistic yet naive person who lives with the remaining humans underground, including her dad Hank and his brother Norm. Together, they reside in a vault identified in number 33, one of the 3 interconnected vaults along with Vault 32 and Vault 31. The beginning for Lucy started with the vault and its people being depicted as a satirical form of American dream, bright color and everything, and they even joke about the siblings affair.
At least one I'm not related to. We have rules about that.
From this point, you don't get the slightest peek into what the surface world looks like. Anyway, all of a sudden, Lucy's vault got attacked by raiders from the surface through Vault 32 led by a woman named Moldaver, and she had taken her dad hostage. So in desperation, she finally steps outside. After that, we finally get the full-fledged into what the wasteland looks like. We get shown everything from the ruins and a bunch of old houses covered in sand. We then focus onto the other 2 protagonists. Maximus, an aspiring soldier for a militant group known as the Brotherhood of Steel. He wants to be on the front line of the war so bad that he's willing to do anything for it, which paid off. He finally got sent to a mission to find an escapee. The Ghoul, the Living Dead, a bounty hunter who's willing to do anything to get its target in order to get paid in a form of immortality. And in this scenario, it's as usual. He was tasked to find a suspect who's the same escapee Maximus is after, but this time, the Ghoul has gone rogue. In fact, he is the same guy from the opening, Cooper Howard, meaning he has been alive for over 200 years. So from the first episode, we get to know enough about the three protagonists. Now we move to episode 2, where things get oddly interesting. As you may know, episode 1 starts with a flashback of the ghoul because he is the only character who can bridge with what happened 200 years prior to present, and you might think the second episode followed the same format. But no. Instead, we saw a rather clean and still running facility filled with scientists experimenting on dogs. Everything about it feels so out of place since we've seen with what happened to the server's world in episode 1. At this point, it just doesn't make sense, right? Anyway, the main character for this scene is a scientist named Wilzik. From the beginning, it's obvious that him, just like anyone in this dystopian utopian place, is a man with a sinister intent. What that might be is still unclear. We see him taking care of his own dog behind everyone's back, and at one point he injects something in the back of his head. He then escapes the facility. If his face is familiar, that's because he's the escapee from episode 1. His face was seen in the transcript Maximus was given, adding a different layer to the story, yet one that gone full circle to the main story. After that, we go back to the usual three main protagonists. For the rest of the show, it went as you'd expect. Lucy is just as confused as us about this strange world, Maximus, like a true hero, tries to save the day, and the ghoul is just going out of his way to kill as much as he could to get his bounty. Of course, the three-way adventure would feel empty, so every checkpoint our main protagonist made, there has to be some sort of revelation or progress. Like with Lucy, she discovered that the thing inside of Wilzik's head was actually important for Moldaver. Then with Maximus, he finally upgraded to a power armor and got along with his bully right before they don't get along again. Then with the ghoul, he instead takes Lucy's hostage and, okay, he doesn't learn a single thing, and that's actually what makes him special. It's not a bad characterization because his personality represents the messed up world of Wasteland. In every episode, we get to know what the people here act like through his lens. From mercilessly killing people, to using a living person as bait, to cutting someone else for food. Oh, how do I forgot? There's supposed to be a fourth protagonist, but his role is not as brought out as the other three because he's only staying in the vault. And it's Norm, Lucy's little brother. After the attack by Moldaver, he starts to feel suspicious, so he dug deeper onto the dark secret of the vault. Sure, the show tries its hardest to make it interesting, like he gets into the neighboring Vault 32 and discovered that the people start killing each other, but after that, it's just him and other vault dwellers having a conversation, which I get it, but most of the convo is just solely based on emotion that doesn't carry any vital information, and it goes on for so long that I just want to get it over. And this leads to the next segment. Specifically, after episode 2, the flashback of the ghoul starts to become sort of the main story, seeing it being in your face in almost every moment, and it just ruins the environment of the show. Basically, from episode 1 and 2, we know that this world of Fallout is huge and it has a lot of mysteries behind it, which is why the pacing gets you from one place to a completely different place, because it lets you know that this world is again huge and it has a lot of surprises awaits. Now, the flashback, as I understand it, is a way to get us to know about the ghoul as a character and how life's like 200 years ago. You know what, I'll just get to the twist in the final episode. The twist is so anticlimactic because it goes like, there's someone behind the wheel. Yeah, no shit. From the very repetitive flashback, the show has been so obvious on insinuating that there's someone that causes the nuclear fallout and forces everyone to live in the vault. They even show Lucy's dad in the flashback, you know, because he's supposed to be the bad guy who's also behind the wheel or some shit. Like they didn't do any subtlety and it just ruins the moment. And what's worse is that there's another twist at the same time that gets unironically sidetracked. So hold your breath because this twist is a long one. A long time ago, Lucy and Norm used to live with their mother and Moldaver in a city in the servers called Shady Sand. But then her dad took her and Norm into the vault and then he nuked the city. This is just too much. So the whole revelation is that the company Vault-Tec and a bunch of others worked together to capitalize on the vault, so they nuke cities one by one, forcing everyone to live in the vault, automatically profiting off of it, while the remaining high-rank employee has to sit in a freeze chamber and continue controlling the vault's economy for the next 200 years, including Lucy's dad. So does this sound cool? Yeah. Is it supposed to make us go soy-jacking all over the place, pointing at the dangers of capitalism, which is relevant in the West right now, or crying out loud at the emotional reveal? No, I don't think so. The thing is, I already see it coming that Fallout is going to have the same problem as FNAF, seeing that the story would get all over the place too quickly that it doesn't give room for the main story to breathe. The constant flashback is so nonsensical because it kills the tension, it kills the surprise. It also something that has already happened, so I don't care about what happened in the past because it already happened. We know what happened to these people, we know the ghoul eventually witnessed the dropping of bombs as we seen in episode 1 that we spent a good over 5 minutes. We don't want to get reminded of the same information in front of our face over and over again. Imagine if this show that already has a good material, which is based off of an open world RPG franchise, had very little flashback. However, even though the twist is a bit shit, it does pay off. I liked it a lot. Like Lucy found out that her dad was behind the nuclear bombing, while at the same time Norm found out that the demise of his neighboring vault was because they found out that Vault 31 was run by the corporate people who has been living for 200 years using the freeze chamber in order to control the vault's population to its knee and to continue capitalize on the vault, and one of those people from the freeze chambers is his dad. So while they are in a completely different environment, different adventures, their twists are connected. But that wasn't the cherry on top for episode 8, the latter was it. Moldaver, who we thought was evil this whole time, was actually tries to heal the world with an energy called the Cold Fusion, which has been hidden by Dr. Wilzik, the thing that he puts inside of his head. But it was encapsulated by a Vault-Tec, so she took hang with it because he knows how to open the capsule. Once it was open, she can light almost the entirety of the wasteland and gives them hope to survive. This is probably the best conclusion there is, where every episode is just fun and chaotic. The very end shows us that this world can be better. Even though yes, she died, it's just sweet seeing her eventually reach her goal, which she's been trying for the past 200 years. Finally, you have to give a huge credit to the amount of effort to make the environment so fucking good. Like back in episode 1, The Vault, it looks so cartoonish, like it was something that was easily made and it just doesn't take itself seriously. But the wasteland is just golden, and I think the intention was to show that it's huge and that it's more than meets the eye. I said it a little previously, but I really like that every little place from the wasteland feels so different. Like we've seen the facility Dr. Wilzik escaped from. It looks so different from what we've seen in the wasteland the first time. There's also this apocalyptic marketplace that gives the most goofy looks in the surface, but the people act so real, and whenever our protagonists got taken aback, you do feel them. But the best one, in my opinion, has gotta be the base of the Brotherhood of Steel. There's a certain charm to it. It feels like a place where man and military do merge together into one amalgamation. Everyone wears shirts that usually wear on weekend, they act like they're so wise while being an asshole, the houses are so simple while the inside look rough. Then the aircraft. The aircraft is my favorite because it completely encapsulates what the Brotherhood is all about. Big and strong vehicles that carry guns and armor. It gives me the same vibes from 2010 sci-fi movies like Avatar or District 9 or Edge of Tomorrow. It felt so action-packed, and seeing the power armor just adds more fuel to my smiling face. Of course, it wouldn't be a wasteland without a waste, like literally. Mutated creature is something that didn't get much attention in the series, even though they are like the main face of the game. There were only a couple of scenes of them, and it is just disappointing that we didn't get to see them more, mainly because of the human characters. But every time they appeared, it looks so scary and dreadful because they're so heavy, so they move really slowly like your fat ass. Fallout is a series that managed to bring the fun out of everything. The Vault that seems mundane at first become more of a home for our characters, and the characters itself flesh out more and makes us like them more as the episode progresses. Like Lucy's, who got her ass kicked multiple times in the wasteland, eventually learned the harsh truth, and she doesn't even get any redemption arc. But the best one has gotta be the ghoul. Like he's so badass in every scene. The story and its pacing was really well done as it branches to different adventures only to stitch them back together with a twist that covered the whole season. Every moment can turn from chill to dread really quickly. I also want to give props to the actors who played their characters really well. It's not Oscar worthy obviously, but they did an excellent job, especially Ella Purnell, Kyle MacLachlan, and Walton Goggins for specifically playing the ghoul. And as a series, it is a must watch. Unless you got families, don't, because it is gory and there's lots of tits. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my full spoiler review of Fallout Season 1 that spanned for 5 pages in my Microsoft Word. Don't forget to leave a like for gratitude and comment down below for your own thoughts on the show. If you do want to support the channel, then feel free to subscribe. The next review is going to be on X-Men 97, so I'm very excited on that, and I'll see you later. Peace.